Right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Mythic Quill. I'm Sherry Leclerc, and today I'm joined by fantasy author Richard H. Stevens. Born in Simcoe in Ontario in 1965, Richard began writing around 1974, a bored child looking for something to while away the long summertime days. His penchant for reading the Hardy Boys led to an inspiration one sweltering afternoon when he and his best friend realized, hey, we could write one of those. And so Richard did. As his reading horizons broadened, so did his writing. Star Wars inspired Richard to write a 600-page novel about outer space and that caught the attention of a special teacher, Mr. Woodley, who saw his talent and encouraged him to keep writing. A few years later, Richard visited a local bookstore. The proprietor introduced him to Stephen R. Donaldson and Terry Brooks, and Richard's writing life was forever changed. In early 2017, with the support of his wife, Caroline, Richard resigned from the police service to pursue his love of writing full-time, and now, with so much gratitude to his artistic team, has realized his boyhood dream. Richard lives in Cambridge, Ontario with his wife and 2 cats, and together they have 5 grown children. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for being here. Okay, so today I want to talk about your 2 most recent releases. So it's Larina, book 1 of the Banebridge Companion Novels, and Sadyra, book 2 of the Banebridge Companion Novels. Why did you write these books?
I wrote them in 2019, December. I finished Legends of the Leclerc trilogy and had a research trip planned for May. Actually, we're supposed to fly out a couple days ago. And because of COVID, the research trip's been canceled. Now we're supposed to go to the British Isles. I was going to research superstition and witchcraft of the 15th and 16th century. And it was going to set up my next series. So I had a couple months to kill between December and May. And I didn't want to invest myself into a different series. I've got about 13 books in my head. I didn't want to invest myself in another series. So I polled my fans on Facebook about, asked them which minor character from either the Legends of the Leclerc series or the Soulforge saga they would like to hear the backstory about. And Sadirah won out barely over Olmar and a couple others. But so I set out to write the book Sadirah, figuring that would fill my time in. And then as I wrote Sadirah, if anyone's read the Soulforge saga, they know that with Sadirah, Larina comes along as a package. They're inseparable in the Soulforge saga, especially in books 2 and 3. And so I'm thinking, but halfway through Sadirah, I got to write Larina's story. So then I started into Larina's story. And as I was writing Larina's story, there's a third person that is very instrumental to them coming together. And his name is Pollard. And then I figured, now I got to write Pollard's story. So this one book quickly grew into 3. But other than this COVID coming in and slowing me down a little bit for Pollard, I've been hitting my mark, and I got Sadirah and Larina released within 2 weeks of each other. Pollard was supposed to be released at the end of April or the end of May, and it's probably not going to happen until the end of June.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to that one too. Was there any one person who was your inspiration for Larina or for Sadirah?
No, Sadirah and Larina were very minor characters in Soulforge. They were just filler characters. I needed someone to escort a couple of the main characters from one spot to another, and they were archers. And so all of a sudden they came into the story. But as I neared the end of Soulforge, I really liked Sadirah's cheeky, fun-loving character. And when I started writing book 2, since she was involved near the end, I included her in the book 2. And in book 2, Wizard of the North, Sadirah and Larina develop into major minor characters. And by the time book 3 rolls around into the madness, they become plot-driving forces. And Sadirah is actually integral to the ending of the whole series. So it's neat how this minor character was just there as a filler character, all of a sudden turned into a very important character in the end.
Yeah, it's like some of them just take on a life of their own, right? And take off.
They certainly do, yes.
Yeah. Are there any characters in your novels that are inspired by people you know or have met in real life?
No. When I started writing at the age of 9, all my characters were my school friends. So all of the books I wrote, Hardy Boy books, I just wrote one story actually, and I never did finish it. But we were Richard and Paul Stobit. So I took our names and combined them. Our last name was Corbett Stevens, so we were the Stobits. So we were like Frank and Joe Hardy. And anyway, I quickly grew out of that. And by the time I was 17 and I got the idea for Soulforge, I started making the characters up myself. So none of them have anything to do with anyone I know.
No, that's cool. What's the most important thing that readers will learn or take away from Larina and from Sadirah?
Hopefully an appreciation of what made them strong, independent, and sassy characters that people come to love in the last two books of the Soulforge saga. And I try to put a little morals in the stories, and like Larina, she battles with she tries to help out the poor impoverished people of Storm's End, which is the city that she grows up in. She never knew her father. Her mother was a woman of ill repute who obviously her father was one of her customers, and so Larina never got to know him. But she grew up wanting to help the people that society had forgotten about. And Sadirah's story is very dark, and I allude to that actually in, I think it's Wizard of the North. It could be Into the Madness. It's all coming to a blur now, but at some point there's a mention of Sadirah's dark backstory, and it was just a line that I threw in there. But from that, this whole backstory, I wanted to write it, and people wanted to know, like, what is Sadirah's secret?
Right.
She's got a dark secret that she doesn't like talking about, and so I wanted to write her story.
Right. Actually, I haven't finished reading them yet, but I'm reading Larina right now, and I kind of got that kind of Robin Hood feel from her, how she's a thief, but she's got purpose to that. She's looking after the marginalized people. So I think that's maybe a little message that people can take from that. From like, it certainly struck me, taking care of people.
Yeah, she was never meant to be Robin Hood. Like I never thought of that at all, but that's basically what she does. She doesn't purposely seek out the rich and steal from them because they're rich. She steals that from them because she wants to help the poor. So I don't know if there's any difference there at all, but she's not taking out on the rich people. That's where she get the money from. She doesn't have any money herself, and she sees the lack in society, and it's almost typical of today's society too, where
it is
the older people kind of get forgotten, and it's a shame. And so she feels a lot of empathy for them. So she takes them under her wing, and even as a young lady, she's only 19 in Larina when the story starts, and she's been doing this for years. So.
Yeah, it kind of did strike me when I was reading about her taking care of, I can't remember, Allard?
Allard, yeah.
Allard. Yeah, because it just kind of reminds you of, like, nowadays, if there's an old homeless person on the street and people just walk by, and you never think about their stories. So that kind of struck me when I was reading that as well.
It's interesting you say that, because the very first scene in Larina is her and Allard in the alleyway. Allard's under a bunch of rags. He's trying to stay warm. And she's trying to comfort him, and the city watches after her because they know that she's a thief. And so when you see Allard, just you think, oh, here's this man who's had a bad life or whatever. He's there because of his own reasons, whatever. But he's not. He was very high in the king's army, and things in life because of choices that he made, and not bad choices. He made good choices to help the others. But he left him with no money. He left him with nowhere to go. And the next thing you know, here's this man who fought for the king and defended the king, and personally defended the king in a straight battle. And now that he's old, he's all forgotten, and he's living in an alleyway.
Right.
So
I think there's definitely some parallels there that can be drawn for today's society as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what is your writing process? Like, when do you write? Do you write in the morning or at night?
I used to write many different times. When I worked with the police service, I wrote for an hour at lunchtime, just to kind of escape what I was going through with dealing with the prisoners that we had. I'm not a big, tough character, so that job wasn't probably for me. After I got it, I realized that maybe I'm out of my league here. I've got utmost respect for the people that deal with the tough part of society. But anyway, so I couldn't write when I got home, when I worked for the police service, because I just wanted to forget everything.
Right.
And so I used that hour for my lunch. I got an hour for lunch, and I used that to maybe escape from my job. And I wrote, and I got a lot of writing done over 12 years. But now that I'm a full-time writer, I've gotten into a routine. So in the morning, I'll wake up and I'll deal with social media, and I'll deal with marketing, which I hate. I wish I could just pay someone to do it.
I think that's true for a lot of us, because we're introverts. Like, writers tend to be introverts, and we all hate that part.
Yeah, some people are good at marketing. Some people are good at other stuff. I'd like to think I'm good at writing. I don't want to wear all these different hats. Like, it pulls me away from what I like to do. But being an independent author, I have to market. So I'm slowly figuring it out. So it makes my head spin most days, and a lot of times I get it wrong. I'll find that I'm spending more money than I'm making. So I got to keep tweaking it, but it's coming slowly. But now I'll write 3,000 words today, and when I wake up in the morning, I will do my social media stuff and marketing, and then I'll edit those 3,000 words, and then in the afternoon I'll write, and sometimes I'll write after supper as well. So that's basically my process now, is I edit in the morning what I did yesterday, and then I write another, hopefully 3,000 words again in the afternoon.
So kind of related to the writing process question, would you consider yourself a plotter or a pantser?
Definitely a pantser. I've always been a pantser. I like to discover the world as my characters discover the world. It works differently for different people. I see, and I'm not knocking them at all. Some people spend years plotting and building these magic systems and these amazing worlds and stuff. And that's what works for them. That's great, but that doesn't work for me. Life's too short. I don't want to spend my time. To me, it's wasting my time. To them, it's not wasting their time. That work for them. But to me, I'd rather spend my time writing. So I come up with a character, I open the front door, I kick him in the butt and get him out there, and I discover the world through his eyes. So
that's cool.
The mountains, all of a sudden he's going through a forest, and we discover the forest together, and then the mountains. And once I get partway through the story, I'll lend my mind to a map. So I can start figuring out the distances and the time that's going to take him on horse and on foot and by ship or whatever. But I generally don't do that until I've got the story going and I know all these different places that are now coming into play. I didn't know the places beforehand, and then I'll draw the map and start sticking them in there. But I'm a pantser for sure.
Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said for that, because like you said about Larina and Sadyra, how they kind of took on their own lives and grew like much bigger than you expected as well. I heard someone once said to me that, like, if you're a pantser, you tend to end up doing like your majority, like you spend a lot of time editing after the fact. And if you're a plotter, you spend a lot of time like up front. Do you think that's true? Would you say that's true for you?
I don't think it's true for me. No, I can't speak for the plotters because I've never done that. But my first book, it was 178,000 words, and I knocked it down to 112,000. It took years to edit, because I had no idea what I was doing. And I used to write third-person omniscient, and my editor browbeat me into writing third-person limited. Right. Because she said, you're head hopping. But I always thought it was cool that if you and I are in a scene, the reader could see what you're thinking about me and see what I'm thinking about you at the same time. So now I write third-person limited. I
think that you and I, when we started probably reading fantasy, that the third person omniscient was like the thing, right? And now and now they're trying to keep away from that and try to have the closer point of view. It's kind of interesting how things change over time, right?
For sure, I still like third person omniscient, and I don't think it's that hard to do. But that's not the way the readers like it nowadays. Yeah, and I can see there's more intimacy in third person limited for sure, because for one chapter, I'm in Sherry's head. It's Sherry's point of view, and we get to know Sherry very intimately. Right. And then we go into Richard's head the next chapter, or whenever you put him in there, if you have multiple points of view. So I do agree that you can get to know the characters a little more intimate for sure. So I like it now. I'm used to it, so I'm okay. Yeah.
I was the same way when I started, because I just wanted to write third person omniscient because it's what we were used to, like probably growing up. I think you and I probably read a lot of the same stuff probably growing up.
Yeah, probably, for sure.
So you kind of touched on this a little bit already, but how has the current situation with the pandemic affected your writing or your writing career?
My writing career, it certainly stopped me from doing shows. And, that's where I make, I'd probably say half my money anyway, the shows. I'm starting to figure Amazon out, so I'm starting to make more headway with Amazon. I'm starting to sell more books on Amazon, so hopefully that trend will continue. But in the summer is when I generally make all the money that I can pay my editors and my cover artists and my interior artists their money. So it gets me through the winter as I'm writing. But it certainly affected that. And this research trip I had for the British Isles, like I say, we were going to fly away 2 days ago to England. And that's out the window now. So hopefully that'll happen in 2021. And because of that, it's totally changed what I'm writing next. So I had one series in mind, and I can't write that because it was all based on witchcraft and superstitions of the 15th, 16th century England and Scotland. And so that's out the window right now until I do the research trip.
Mm. I always found that like fairs in the summertime and spring and always were good for me too. So it kind of does make a big difference that way. But I thought it was really cool when I heard about your trip as well. So it's sorry that that's
Mhm.
gotten. Hopefully you'll get a chance to do that when everything's kind of back to
Yeah,
normal.
there's always a silver lining because in 2 weeks from now, that trip would have been over.
Oh yeah,
So we still have it to look forward to. So there's
that's
always a bit
true.
of a silver lining. It keeps you a bit more excitement to go forward. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So are you currently? I'm guessing. I was going to ask you. You're currently writing another novel, but I'm assuming you're writing a third in the Banebridge Chronicles now. Is that
That's
correct?
correct. I'm writing Pollard. So each book in the Banebridge Companion Novels is named after the title character. So the first one is Larina, and then Sadyra, and then they come together in Pollard. And Pollard is the glue that binds those two together. They were living different paths. They didn't know each other, and Pollard's the one that brings them together.
Okay.
So the third book at Pollard, and then they'll go off on an adventure in the Pollard book. And at the very end of the Pollard book, Sadirah was only supposed to be one book, and her whole story was supposed to be from the beginning of Sadirah to the end. But Pollard and Larina are part of that story before it actually gets very dark. So there's a very dark scene that happens right near the end of Pollard involving Sadirah, and they're just 3 books now, so instead of 1.
Right. So these books are kind of like prequels then, right? Like the backstories for the
They're
characters?
prequels to the Soulforge saga, but they're standalone. Like they are a trilogy on their own. They're not. I guess they're not 400-page doorstops, but they're a few hundred pages each, and they're standalone stories on their own.
I just remember starting to read Larina, and I saw that the Archer, and I was wondering, is that perhaps Sadirah? So, kind of just reminded me of that part of that I read in the other book.
Oh, I see. I know what you're talking about. You're talking about Lozen. When Lozen comes in, you haven't met Lozen yet. Sorry, I'm going to spoil it for you.
Because she was saying there's an Archer that was with the watch that was chasing her. And
that's right.
It was a female with her hair down to her waist, and then I'm like, could that be Sadirah, perhaps?
You haven't got to that. I won't spoil it for you then. Sorry.
Yeah. All right. So, who is your favorite author?
My favorite author is Terry Brooks.
Cool.
And I read The Sword of Shannara, and I fell in love with fantasy right there. Just the mystery and the wonder of his story was amazing. And then I also read Stephen R. Donaldson right around the same time. I think I read one right after the other. And Stephen R. Donaldson, he gets really long-winded as he gets older into his later series, but his world building is amazing. Like the vistas and his characters are so memorable. So Stephen R. Donaldson, he's kind of got a grim hero. A lot of people don't like him. He's kind of an anti-hero.
Oh, okay.
He's a real sad sack. And a lot of people don't like that, but I really enjoyed that series. So Terry Brooks and Stephen R. Donaldson are definitely my 2 favorite authors.
Cool. And where can we buy your books? Because obviously we can't go to fairs right now.
They're always available on Amazon. I do ship. When COVID's done, I'll be shipping them out of my house again. I do have people that drive a couple hours away when I release a book, and they'll e-transfer me, and they'll just drive down. I'll give them a signed book. With COVID, I still do it, but I just put them in the bag and I put them on the door, and they just pick them up, and then we can social distance and say thanks. So, but they're all available on Amazon. I've got large prints. I've got audiobooks now. There are ebooks. I'm on Kindle Unlimited. So all my books, except for one tiny prequel that I wrote originally, is on Kindle Unlimited, and that last one is I use as a reader magnet, so I can't have it on Kindle Unlimited.
Right.
So it's an Amazon rule.
So I think I actually missed a question I was going to ask you.
Oh, no worries.
About that, like both Larina and Sadirah are strong, independent female characters, and as is Rika and Rika's Flight as well. And was this a deliberate choice? And if so, what inspired the choice?
No, I wrote their backstories and explained the dramatic events. They're both dark and serious that helped shape them into the strong, confident characters that the readers will see in the Soulforge saga. So the Soulforge saga was obviously written first. And with regard to gender, I never put any thought into trying to portray a woman as being strong, trying to give her that strong character, or as a male as being compassionate, or, as we normally see, put feminine qualities in with him to make him more rounded. My characters develop on their own. Like I say, I kicked them out the door, and I learn about my characters as they go. I generally have a bit of a feel for the character. Obviously, the hero in So Forth Saga, Larina, I knew him really well before I even kicked him out the door. I just knew what kind of character he was. But I never put any kind of emphasis. I don't dream up a character and say, I'm going to make this one a strong one, I'm going to make this one a weak one. Their identities just kind of shape themselves as I write them. And it's kind of neat to see where they go.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting that a lot of times that happens, like you start a character and they just kind of reveal themselves to you, I guess, as you go along. That's really interesting.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And like when I started Soulforge, I started when I was 17, and at 35 years later, I finished it. And when I was 17, I knew the ending. The two main characters had to do something special at the very end in order to defeat the sorcerer. And about halfway through book 3, one of the characters does something so off the wall that it threw that ending. And this is 35 years later, I got into book 3.
Right.
And all of a sudden, halfway through book 3, one of the characters is something so off the wall that the ending went right out the window. So after 35 years, this ending in my head is now gone, and I had to come up with another ending.
Yeah.
So the characters they have a life of their own.
Were you cursing your character when that happened?
No, I thought it added a lot of depth to the story itself. And what it did was introduce the dragon. There was no dragon in the Soul Force Saga period. There was never supposed to be a dragon in there. And because of what that character did, all of a sudden this dragon, I needed a way to deal with the sorcerer.
Right.
This all-powerful sorcerer. How are you going to get rid of him now? And all of a sudden the dragon came into play. And because of that spurred the Legends of the Lurker. Because now I had to explain to the reader why the Soul Force Saga doesn't have dragons in it, other than at the end. So then Rika's Flight was born because of that, of what that character did. So he actually he probably inspired another 12 books that I'm writing before Soul Forge now.
Well, that's
all because if he did something crazy, yeah.
That's cool. I could appreciate that because I love dragons. So
You gotta have dragons, yeah.
So I guess like for you and I, it was kind of like my first book. I think I wrote it really fast, but it was in my head for like 20 something years before I even wrote it. But I think it's the same thing. Like, would you say it's a lot easier these days to publish than it was when we were young and first wanted to do that? Because I think I was in the same situation.
Oh, definitely. I've always wanted to be a writer, but when I was a kid and even when I was an adult, we didn't have internet until the 90s. And, I was 30-something at that point, and I was finishing one career and trying to get into the other career, and I had 3 kids at that point. And, the family took precedence over anything I was doing. I loved writing, but it was kind of a hobby at that point.
Right.
I took my writing seriously, but I never seriously thought I would actually be a published author. I always dreamed of being one, but, I just never thought I'd actually get to that step. But now that with Amazon and internet and everything else, I wish I was 15 right now, just for that reason, because then I could start publishing stuff.
Yeah, because I was in this. Yeah, I was in that same situation. I had my story in my head since I was like a teenager. But yeah, it's kind of cool. The self-publishing has opened up so much, I think, for authors now.
Amazing opportunities, especially when I speak to younger people at these book signings. They want to be authors, and I'm just so envious of them. 15, 16 years old. I was like, wow, you got the world before you. Just go out and grab it. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. Okay, did you want to add anything before we get into the reading?
No, I think I'm good. Once I'm finished Pollard, which is book 3, I'm now going to be writing. I've called it the High Cliff. I'm still coming up with the title of it. The High Cliff Guardians is going to be the name of the series. And it's supposed to be a 3-series book, and just last week, all of a sudden, I saw this cover. I'm kind of a cover addict, so I saw this cover. I just had to have it, and it looked just like the main character I have in the other 3 covers. I've got all the covers bought. I've got to have that one now, but now I have to write a story for it.
Right.
And I originally was going to use that as interior art. I always put interior art in my books because I grew up reading, loving Frank Dixon's Hardy Boys. He always had,
the interior
sketched in cover, and I always thought it was such an intimate experience to have that. So when I write my books, now I have to have interior art. So I asked the cover designer, can I use that as an interior one? She goes, no, I really like it as a cover. I would rather sell it to someone who's actually going to use it for a cover.
Right.
And I think so. A couple hours later, I just festered in my head. I got to have it. So I've come up with a story for it, and it's now book
Right.
1 of the series I'm going to be writing after Pollard.
It's kind of funny that you say that about the covers, because like I actually have a couple of covers that I've had for probably years, because I haven't gotten around to writing the stories, but I saw them and I had to have them, and
Yes,
they fit these ideas I had in my head.
for sure. And
Yeah.
they spur new ideas too. It's amazing what they can do.
Okay, so did you want to talk a little bit about what you're going to be reading today?
Okay, so I'm going to read an excerpt out of Sadyra. Let me just pull up on the screen here. I've got it here. And, not Sadyra, Larina. And Larina's book 1 of the Banebridge Companion Novels. And just to set the scene, Larina's a thief. And she's been hired by some shady individuals to steal a scroll from one of the well-respected people of Storm's End. And he lives in a big mansion on top of the cliffs. And it's supposedly protected and with so many guards that people aren't. So it's supposed to be impregnable, but Larina's not. Larina knows that she can get past the guards and everything else. So it's about 2:00 in the morning. She's actually inside the mansion now. She's got past all the guards, and she's knocked one of the guards out, who actually stumbled upon her inside the library, and she's looking for the scroll. So anyway, she's in the library. She's found the scroll, and Thorol, the old man that she's stealing it from, comes in, and he finds her he catches her red-handed. So it'll be him speaking first.
Okay, I'm going to switch the view. So.
Okay, yes.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
And who are you, young lady? What are you doing in my house? He squinted at the scroll in her hands, his faded black robe clinging to the angular frame it hid beneath. And what do you think you're doing with the Crusher Scroll? Crusher Scroll? The name of the document in her hand echoed through her mind. An odd sense of guilt muddied her ability to think straight. It wasn't like her to freeze under stress. She had made her name by reacting under pressure. But for some reason, the old man's presence left her speechless. Do you know what you have in your hands? She shook her head. Recovering from her initial shock, she held his pale, blue-eyed gaze as she eased the suede tube from where she had tucked in her belt and worried its edges into a round shape to accommodate the scroll. You hold the key to unlock Zephyr's demise. She frowned at the scroll, regarding it like she held a snake. It was all she could do not to drop it. The old man nodded. Aye, in the wrong hands, the Crusher Scroll would prove devastating. It holds the key to destroy the entire kingdom. She frowned. It's just a map. He raised a single bushy eyebrow. Just a map to you, dear child, but in the right hands, it'll provide the bearer means to locate power greater than anything you can imagine. The price the men were willing to pay for it began to make sense. I don't believe you. Magic is gone from the land. How quickly you young ones forget. Queen Quarnane and many courageous souls gave their lives to save us from this so-called lack of magic. You must have heard about how the sky turned cinder and fire rained down on the land? Yes, but Helene's dead. He was the last of the magic users. So quick to judge. That's the trouble with today's society. No one takes the time to seek the truth. You've been lulled into a false sense of security. Easier to accept that the world will go on the way it is without a care than expend unnecessary energy, coming to terms with the fact that someday soon. Appearing flustered at his inability to find the right words to finish the sentence, he pointed a shaky finger, his voice deepening. Let me tell you, young lady, there's a storm brewing over the ocean. A big one. If the ache of my bones tells me true, we're staring the end of times in the face. She gaped at him, as if he were a senile lunatic. Not wanting to consider his preposterous claim, she changed the subject. You're Thorol Banebridge, right? What a stupid question. Who else would I be? Of course I'm Thorol Banebridge. He shook his head in disgust and sat down, easing his stick-like body into the chair on the far side of the domed table. Her gaze searched out the old man's other hand. His last 2 fingers and a good part of his hand were missing. She swallowed and forced herself to look him in the eye, thinking how bizarre it felt to carry on a conversation with the person she was stealing from. Her eyes widened. The cagey old man was stalling her. She cautiously tightened the scroll until it slid comfortably into the suede tube. She poised to flee, but Thorol reminded her so much of Allard that guilt held her back. Look, Master Banebridge, I feel sorry about stealing your scroll, but I have no choice. Thorol's eyes narrowed. Somewhere deep within his gaze, she could see the essence of the powerful man he once was. The sight made her shudder. As long as one draws breath, there's always a choice. Thorol's shaky voice turned dark and menacing. You feel bad about taking something that doesn't belong to you, hmm? the key that will give the bear access to an artifact powerful enough to cause thousands of senseless deaths and expedite the ruin of our world, you have a strange way of demonstrating remorse. If you leave with that map, you'll bring Zephyr to his knees.
That's cool. I haven't finished a book yet, so now it kind of makes me want to go over and finish reading it like now. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for coming in and talking to us, or talking to me.
No worries. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Okay. And I'm going to be posting, hopefully, your links in our description as well, so people will know how to get in touch with you, if that's okay with you.
So, no, that's totally fine with me. I always encourage people to, you can email me whenever you like, and
awesome.
We can make, if you want the books, we can email them to you. And actually, it's now that we have you on here, I'm still doing this because of COVID. I'm offering anyone a free ebook of their choice. They just have to go on my website and pick any book. I don't care which one it is, just to kind of help them forget about COVID for, even for a couple hours, get lost in the fantasy world, hopefully. So
right.
They just have to email me and go through my website and just tell me which book they want.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, well, thank you. I'm going to post all that information below as well, so people hopefully can get in touch with you about that.
That'd be perfect.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much for talking with me, and I guess I'll see you again soon.
You're most welcome, Sherry.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Sorry. I wasn't recording. I didn't record any of that.
Oh, no. What do you need to record?
Everything.
Oh, the whole thing?
Yeah.
So you want to do the... That's okay. We can do it all over again.